money for schools, unemployment insurance, help for small businesses, help for the restaurant industry, the airline industry, and state and local governments. But Senator Mitch McConnell has no time for that. He has, otherwise, time only for political agenda. No time for coronavirus and the economy. No time for him to personally attend negotiations to try to come up with a massive COVID-19 relief bill to meet this national challenge. Senator McConnell and the Republicans have only one priority. It is political. They need to reverse the position they announced 4 years ago when they denied President Obama the opportunity to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court. They need to deny the American people a voice in this selection process. They need to force through this nomination of Amy Coney Barrett. Millions of Americans watched the Senate Judiciary Committee last week. They could draw their own conclusions. I'll tell you mine. Yes, her resume tells us that she has a lot of law in her head. What I wanted to know is what she has in her heart. What we learned was she did not have the compassion for 23 million Americans who were depending on the Affordable Care Act to provide them some refuge and some confidence in the midst of this pandemic. She didn't have the courage to stand up to President Trump and say she would not be a lackey of his when it came to an election contest. And she didn't have a basic commitment to the pillars of modern law in America. The pillars including the rights of women. The pillars including our battle against racism. Pillars including marriage equality, privacy for every American citizen, and most importantly, just a few days before this election, no commitment to when it came to voting rights in America. Look every day at the news reports of people standing in line in the United States waiting for 10 hours to vote. That is shameful in a country that claims to be a democracy with opportunity for all. And so we come to you today to make it clear. We could not be party to this Senate Judiciary Committee action across the street this morning. It was in violation of committee law and committee rules, but more importantly, it was in violation of fair play. We believe the American people should have the last word in filling this Supreme Court vacancy, and they will have the last word on November 3rd. The efforts by Senator McConnell to ignore this pandemic and to move forward with this nomination are inconsistent with the basic principles of this country, and that is why the members of the committee decided en masse not to participate. I now introduce Senator Sheldon Whitehouse.
For the third time now, big anonymous donors seem to have bought their way to the table at which United States Supreme Court justices are selected for the third time. For the third time, big anonymous donors have written checks of $15 million and higher to pay for the campaigns for the confirmation of the selected justices for the third time. And for the third time, our Republican colleagues have broken every rule, every practice, every norm of the Senate, including ones they set themselves in order to deliver for the big anonymous donors a court that will serve their interests. They are turning that institution into a pantomime court that goes through the motions of adjudication, but delivers the goods for the donors. This ain't over. And with that, let me turn it over to the distinguished Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, everyone. This is a Justice Ginsburg dissent caller. And I think we should not forget fervent wish was. And that was that the winner of the election, the next president, pick her successor. That was in fact consistent with the precedent set by our Republican colleagues just a few years ago. That is what this is about. They have engaged in a sham, in violating their own precedent, in not listening to the words of the great Justice Ginsburg. Justice Ginsburg said that her dissents were blueprints for the future. As a rabbi noted in this great capital, they were not cries of defeat, they were blueprints for the future. And that is what is at stake in this election, because we can make our own blueprints for the future. We can make our own blueprints by voting. So the one thing I wanted to focus on today was something that Senator Durbin referred to. And that is, this is deeply personal for so many Americans. While the Republicans are ramming through this justice and spending the whole weekend on that, what should we be doing? Helping the families of this country, the moms that are trying to keep their kids on their laps while they've got their laptops on their desks. The moms and dads that are trying to teach first graders how to use the mute button. The seniors like my dad who got COVID, who I visited through a glass door not knowing if it was going to be the last time I saw him at 92 years old, and he looked so small in that room. People like my husband that got really, really sick, and I didn't think was going to make it home. This is personal for everyone out there. No matter where you come down on this, this is personal. And this Republican majority and this president have chosen to make as their closing argument that they're going to push through a nominee whose record shows us just where she's going to come out on so many things. The Affordable Care Act is on the ballot. Voting is on the ballot. Women's rights are on the ballot. And this is our moment. So I do not stand here today with a cry of defeat, no matter what a sham this is. I stand here for Justice Ginsburg with a blueprint for the future.
Good morning. This morning, the Capitol and the Supreme Court are shrouded in mist and fog. It's not clear. So let us help clear it up. Because sometimes the talk of votes and committees, of quorum and filibusters here in the Capitol, in the Senate, is a little hazy for the American people and sometimes tough to follow. But why we're here on these steps and what this is all about is it is all about what is on the ballot and what is on the docket. On the agenda this morning, on the Senate Judiciary Committee, was moving the nomination of Judge Barrett to the floor of the Senate. And as my colleagues have said now several times, the only way the Republican majority was able to do this was by breaking the rules of the committee. We were not there and we were not part of that vote, because after the confirmation hearings that have happened, it is abundantly clear that in the middle of a pandemic where 8 million Americans have been infected and more than 220,000 have lost their lives, we should instead be negotiating a robust package of pandemic relief, and the Republicans have insisted on breaking the example they set just 4 years ago of refusing to move a qualified nominee in the midst of an election. Well, folks, we're in the midst of an election. Tens of millions of Americans are already voting. And we participated in the hearing so that we could ask Judge Barrett, so we could get clear for the American people what's on the ballot and what's on the docket. Like all of us, I brought a picture of a real person for whom the consequences of what's on the docket are very real. Just a week after the election, the Supreme Court will hear Another constitutional challenge to the Affordable Care Act, long settled 8 years ago. In my case, Carrie from Middletown, with a pre-existing condition, a small business owner, someone who can't get access to quality, affordable health care if the Affordable Care Act is overturned. And in the confirmation process, I asked Judge Barrett, will you recuse yourself if this rushed and partisan, unprecedented process results in putting you in that court just in time to decide cases that arise from this election? Well, she hemmed and hawed. She would not commit to recusing herself from a decision that would hand the election to Donald Trump. Why is this even an issue? Because of what Donald Trump, President Trump himself has said. Over and over, President Trump has said, I want her rushed through so that a judge can sit on the court and overturn the ACA. I want her just rushed through so she can decide the election. And every member of the Republican majority in the Judiciary Committee and in this Capitol behind me has over and over voted to overturn the Affordable Care Act. This isn't about what Judge Barrett said in her confirmation hearings, because she mostly wouldn't answer. It's about what we all know is on the agenda, is on the ballot, and is on the docket. I asked Judge Barrett if she would simply confirm, as several conservative justices before her have, that the right to privacy, first recognized in Griswold versus Connecticut decades ago in 1965, was settled, was safe, was secure, was the sort of right that Americans can know is not on the docket and is not up for reconsideration. And unlike justices, both progressive and conservative before her, she would not say so. Why does that concern me? Because her writings and her record show in Judge Barrett, a judge willing to go farther to the right than even Justice Scalia, who she's claimed as a mentor and a model, and to reach back, reconsider, and possibly overturn decisions that she and other conservative justices think were wrongly decided. What does that mean might be on the docket? The whole line of cases that recognize privacy, the right to love, the right to marry. Obergefell decided just 5 years ago, and don't listen to me, Justices Alito and Thomas just weeks ago raised their hand and said we should reach back and reconsider. So folks, they may be shrouded in mist right now, but I hope I've helped make it clear, as have all the Democrats standing behind me. We were not over in the Judiciary Committee markup this morning because we wanted to be clear. What was on the agenda, what is on the docket, what is on the ballot. This is personal. It's about long-settled rights for millions and millions of Americans. In the middle of this pandemic, we should not be racing for the Republicans to confirm this partisan nominee who puts at risk hundreds of cases long settled. We should be delivering relief to the American people. Thank you. And with that, I'd love to hand this over to Senator Blumenthal today.
Thanks, Senator Coons. First of all, my thanks to Senator Schumer and Senator Feinstein for their leadership. Make no mistake, we are 100% unified. If it sounds like we're repeating each other's points, it's not due to lack of originality. It's a sign of our unity and our determination to continue this fight. Now, I listened to my Republican colleagues during the meeting today. Their case for moving Judge Barrett forward was to attack Democrats. It was full of bile and anger and grievance against Democrats. They are running away from the issues, from the effect of this nomination to take away rights to health care for millions of Americans, rights to gun violence prevention, rights to vote, rights to safety in the workplace. And in fact, millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions will be at risk because of brought into that hearing room, real people whose lives may be decimated by rulings on the ACA to strike it down. Real women who will lose control over when and whether they have children. Because this nominee has said, in effect, the legacy of Roe v. Wade is barbaric. She has aligned herself with groups that would criminalize in vitro fertilization. She has shown, by her legal position, that she would overturn Roe v. Wade, and in fact, she has passed the Trump test. He called it a strong test. Strike down the ACA, overturn Roe v. Wade. That's the reason that she wouldn't answer our questions. She's already answered those questions for the vetting and screening right-wing groups that have given her the pass. Almost half a century ago, in the building across the street, Justice Blackmun wrote the opinion in Roe v. Wade. I clerked for him shortly after he did it. And we thought then that this issue was solved, that privacy was guaranteed. And yet today, we are still fighting the issue that protects women's rights. We owe it to them, we owe it to all Americans to keep up this fight, because we can't go back to the time when abortion was banned, when contraception was criminalized. We need to move forward. We are determined to do it. I've heard from those Americans who have been watching, the Americans that we brought into the hearing room, the Americans who are scared and angry. I've been listening to people across Connecticut who feel fundamental rights may be gone. Our Republican colleagues have pushed this nomination through in a raw exercise of power. They're doing it because they can. The American people can do what they can on November 3rd. We're not done. We're going to continue to fight this nomination. We will have votes ahead, and I hope my colleagues will be held accountable for disregarding the will of the American people who want their voice heard, so that the next president and the next Senate will choose the next justice. I'm now happy to yield to my great colleague from Hawaii, Senator Roman.
Thank you. I am very committed to joining my colleagues in other protests of what is happening with this nominee. These are not normal times. It's not normal times when we ask Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans, why are your priorities so screwed up that in the middle of a pandemic, we can't work on a COVID bill that actually helps people, and you're pushing through this nominee? It's not normal when that question becomes a rhetorical question, but here we are. So we all know that Amy Barrett presents a clear and present danger to the Affordable Care Act. Come November 10th, when the Republicans get their way, she'll be sitting there in the court to hear this case. She's already let it be known that she thinks Chief Justice Roberts made a mistake when he upheld the law, which means that if she had been sitting in that court, she would have struck down the Affordable Care Act then. She is a clear and present danger to so many of the rights that Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You know what? It wasn't long ago when we lost her. Have we forgotten all the things that she fought for? Equal rights for women, access to affordable care, LGBTQ rights, all the rights that Ruth Bader Ginsburg fought for, and that she actually listened to the people who would be impacted by the court's decisions. So I want to focus on one of these rights, LGBTQ rights. One of my colleagues mentioned Obergefell. 2 Supreme Court justices have already signaled, this is what they do. they signal, why don't we revisit Obergefell? Because there's no constitutional basis for same-sex marriage. This would be Justices Alito and Thomas. They're really good at signaling what they would like to have a chance to overturn. Now, Judge Barrett aligns herself with Justice Scalia, who wrote all of the major decisions against gay rights, including the last one was Obergefell. So you combine the fact that Judge Barrett aligns herself with the right wing, conservative wing of the Supreme Court. She is very much in line with her mentor, Justice Scalia. Combine that with her outlier view of precedent, where she says it is up to every justice to decide for herself what the Constitution requires, and if precedent does not align with that, down goes the precedent. That is why Roe v. Wade is at risk. That is why Obergefell is at risk. That is why so many of the rights and protections that Ruth Bader Ginsburg spent her whole time on the Supreme Court fighting for are at risk. And that is why I stand here with my colleagues in protest of this nominee. And guess what? There are already 40 million people who have voted. They know what's at stake. They are listening. The Republicans hope that people are not paying attention, but they are. I now want to turn to my good friend, Cory Booker.
I stand with my colleagues in a firm commitment to some of the best of American values and tactics. I stand with my colleagues with a commitment to non-cooperation with that which is wrong and boycott of that which is unacceptable. We stand resolute and in lockstep with tens of millions of Americans of all backgrounds, all persuasions, all political parties, in the firm belief that what Senate Republicans are doing right now is wrong. They are violating processes, they are violating rules, they are violating conscience, and they are violating their own words. It is a difficult thing to witness such bitter violence against your own words. But I stand also with my colleagues in this resolute, firm belief that we will continue the fight. Even though we stand at a point where, in the midst of a pandemic, we do, almost literally, are walking through the valley of the shadow of death. At a time that our country needs the best of us, we have fallen into a rank partisanship that is failing us. Instead of coming together to claim the high ground of action on the crisis, we are descending into the low ground and quicksand of a power grab that will go down in history as one of the darker moments of this institution. And so today I stand with my colleagues and I lean upon the truth of our history. It has not been absent of wrongs from this institution to that one. I stand with them in an understanding that in this great nation, America has shown an extraordinary alchemy, the ability to turn dark days, dark nights into new days of hope, the ability to turn wretched wrongs into pathways of redemption, the ability to take from tragic defeat new possibilities for greater victories. And so today I join with my colleagues in a great tradition of non-cooperation and boycott of these proceedings. But I also join with them arm in arm like so many of our ancestors did and say resolutely, in the words of those whose sacrifices ensured my very presence here, we say, we shall overcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
We have time for questions.